Um, Good morning. My name is Cris Plata, and I hope that this video finds you safe and healthy in these trying times. Today, I will be reading from my book from the Wisconsin Historical Society Press, and the title of the book is called Cris Plata From Fields to Stage, Del Campo al Escenario, and it's in English and in Spanish. Um, for those of you that don't speak Spanish, my last name Plata means silver. So there's your first Spanish lesson of the day. And I'm a singer songwriter. I play the guitar, the accordion, mandolin, and I write my own music in English and in Spanish. And I record albums with my band, Cris Plata and Extra Hot. I was raised among Mexican American migrant farm workers, and life for migrant farm workers was really hard, especially for children like me. I had to leave behind home, school, friends, and follow the harvest season. And that's how I came to Wisconsin with my folks. And Cris Plata From Fields to Stage is a dual language book and written in English and Spanish that traces my journey from fields, farm fields, to a musical stage. And it was written by a good friend of mine, Maya Surdam, who she's an educator with a PhD in history from the University of Wisconsin. And her research explores farming, family, and communities in the rural Midwest. But now she lives in North Carolina. I'm going to read just a few things. First of all, I'm going to read from the first chapter that's called Family Roots. And if we are to understand Cris Plata's many migrations and the home he eventually made in Wisconsin, we have to look back further into the lives of his parents. His story has roots that spread wide and far. They extend into central Mexico, in the desert plains of northern Jalisco, where his father was born. But they also reach down to south central Texas, where his mother was born. And like many Mexican Americans of Mexican descent, my story is tied to both the United States and Mexico. Now, I'm going to read another page here because of to tell you a little bit more about myself. My father, Cris Sr., I'm Cris Jr., so that means that my dad's name is Cristobal, also like mine. My name is Cristobal in Spanish, which means Christopher in English. And so I'm a junior, but my dad was Cris Sr. And my father worked in Texas also, but he was not born there. His parents were peasant farmers from Mexico, state of Jalisco. And my dad was born there in 1929. And his family lived in a small village called El Rancho Alegre that was high up in the mountains. In English, Rancho Alegre means the happy village. But despite the village's name, life there did not come easy for my folks, for my dad's folks. And like many hundreds and thousands of other Mexicans during this time, my dad went to Al Norte, the north. He hoped to find a job so that he could take care of himself and send money back to his family in Mexico. He walked the entire way there, which was a distance of more than 700 miles. It was a long journey to Texas, especially when he was just a 15-year-old boy. But my dad was brave and venturous and desperate for a new life. After his 6 weeks journey north, my dad found work in the United States, and he got his first job in Cotulla, Texas, where he worked for 2 years, 365 days per year as a chuck wagon cook for a cattle company. He made breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a crew of about 25 people. My dad used different cooking methods depending on the season and the cowboys' tasks. During the spring roundup, when the cowboys gathered and moved cattle, he cooked out of the back of a wagon, which was drawn by horses. Other times of the year, he used to cook in a cookhouse on the ranch. When working out of the wagon, he prepared food cowboy style. He dug a hole in the ground outside and started a fire to create embers. Then he put the food in a cast iron pot and buried it in the pot in the hot coals to cook the food. Using this method, he made dishes like arroz con pollo, which means chicken with rice, tamales. I don't know if any of you have ever had tamales, but they're a masa, and it's wrapped up in a corn husk and cooked in there with fillings. You can either have pork, you can have beans or cheese. And he made bread, and also my favorite, peach cobbler. Because he spent most of his time working and he could eat food on the job, he did not need much money to survive. He spent most of his paycheck back home to his mother and siblings. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about he worked as a abracero, which means he could come to the United States legally. And the reason I put this on here is because this used to be a story that he used to tell us when we were little kids, me and my two brothers. And he said working as a abracero had a major impact on my life and eventually on his family as well, which included me and my brothers. My dad was already outgoing and adventurous young man, but this experience deepened those qualities. He loved meeting new people and learning new skills and trying new food. While working in an orchard, that means at places that had fruit trees, in Nebraska, he saw apples for the first time. Now, can you imagine seeing apples for the first time in your life? The farmer told my dad to try one, and my dad did, and he loved it. Many years later, he told us the story of the day. He explained, "I've never eaten so many apples in my life. I almost got sick." But more important, though, was my dad learned how to make his way in a large and sometimes unfriendly world. He was very gregarious, which means he was outgoing and made friends easily. I know that he encountered a lot of prejudice. And I know some of you have encountered prejudice too. That means when people like you, just because of the way you look or the color of your skin. But he never let it bother him. He just didn't show it. He learned that the world was a big place with many kinds of people to meet and sights to see. So he wanted his family to experience that. And while working on a farm near Somerset, Texas in 1948, my dad met Marcelina Casillas at a fiesta. That night, they danced together to the music of a man named Santiago Jimenez, an accordion player whose music was popular throughout South Texas and other parts of the southwestern United States. Soon afterwards, Cristol, my dad, and Marcelina decided to get married, and over a period of 10 years, they had 3 children, Juan, Antonio, and myself. And all of us grew up to love music as much as my folks did. And I spent the first 7 years of my life in Texas, where my family lived year-round. They shared a house with my aunt, Josefina and Alberto Lopez, and their 7 children, or my cousins. And we lived in the basement of a house, and the Lopezes lived upstairs of us. In the winter months, both families stayed on the ranch near Poteet, which is a small town in south central Texas. And during the summer months, they migrated to the northwest Texas to work on a large farm picking cotton near Westbrook and Colorado City in Texas. And these years that the Plata family migrated around Texas prepared us for a much longer journey that they would one day make. And that would be coming up to Wisconsin. Now, my mother always had to pack food because at the time when we came up to Wisconsin, there was never any McDonald's or fast food places or restaurants. And a lot of the restaurants, this is a funny thing, they never let us, they wouldn't let Mexican people, if it was owned by white people, come in and eat because they just didn't like the way the color of our skin looked or that we spoke Spanish. So it was kind of tough. So that's why my mother would always pack a little dishes to cook in and a little stove. And she also brought these up north so that when we were working in the fields, she would prepare meals for us. And then she used to bring this thing called a molcajete. I don't know if you can see the picture there, but she gave her own molcajete that she had for many, many years, over 70 years of her life. She had this molcajete. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the molcajete. The molcajete was used by pre-Hispanic Mesoamericans, and Meso means middle. And that's because in Mexico and South Central America, the culture there used these stone tools molcajete is a word that's an Aztec word. And it's a stone tool made from lava rocks. So you have a piece of lava and then they carve it out. And they use the molcajete for crushing spices and to prepare salsas and guacamole. I'm going to show you my mother's molcajete. And this is a molcajete. As you can see, it's round. It's got 3 feet to set on the table. And this other thing is called a tejolote. And they put all the spices in here. They grind it up and they can make salsas out of it. And they make one of my favorite dishes, guacamole. And I know some of you have heard of guacamole. It's an avocado sauce. And guacamole is also an Indian word. It's an Aztec word that literally translates into avocado sauce. And the Aztecs pronounced it aguacate mole. Aguacate is the word that they use for avocado. And mole is a sauce, so they call it aguacate mole. And so that was one of the things my mother brought to Wisconsin, and she gave it to me so that I can make guacamole and I can make salsa and everything that I like to eat, all the dishes that she showed me how to make. And also I wanted to just read a little bit about music, because that's the important thing in my life. Music was important to the Plata family. So I learned how to appreciate music and started to play the guitar around age 4 and 5. Long after many days in the field, the family would entertain themselves by playing songs from Mexico and South Texas. My dad, my brother Antonio and Juan taught me how to play the guitar. And my mother was the best singer in the family. And she taught us all how to sing. And sometimes, long after the work was done in the migrant community, we would sit around and play songs for everyone. Now, I told you that I had horses because I grew up in a ranch in Texas, but now I have horses. And I want to show you a picture of the first horse that I ever owned. I don't know if you can see it, but this was my horse, Dusty. And then she had a little colt, and I named him El Norte, which means the North. And we shortened the name El Norte to Nort. But I wrote a song for the horse that I own. Her name was Dusty, and she was an Arab. And when the Arabs' horses run, they raise their tail up in the air and they look really pretty. So I'm going to play a song for you that I wrote about my horse, Dusty. And it's a song that I call Pretty Prancing Pony. So I'm going to play my guitar. But first I have to tune my guitar. And the way to do that is When I was a kid, we didn't have electronic tuners, so we had to use what they call a pitchfork. And the pitchfork vibrates at 444 hertz, and it gives you the key of A. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but that's what it sounds like. So what you do is you tune it to your A on the guitar. And there, you can hear it's in tune. So then you tune up the rest of the strings. So this is my song that I wrote for my horse, Dusty. Pretty Prancing Pony. See my pretty prancing pony, she got a tail up in the air. See my pretty prancing pony, she got a tail up in the air. I got my boots made of Spanish leather, silver spurs dangling on my heels. I got my finest Mexican saddle, my bridle made of silver and gold, all silver and gold. Gold and silver, silver and gold. El gusto de los rancheros es tener un buen caballo para pasearse en domingo y para correr por los llanos allá en el rancho grande. They got a lot of pretty señoritas with skin as brown as a Mexican ground, hair as black, black as midnight, with stars falling all around, Lord, all around. Oh, see my pretty prancing pony, see my pretty prancing pony, see my pretty prancing pony, she got her tail up in the air. I got my boots made of Spanish leather, silver spurs dangling on my heels. I got my finest Mexican saddle, my bridle made of silver and gold, all silver and gold. Gold and silver, silver and gold. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to redo the whole program for you in Spanish so that you get a feeling for how the book was written. So we'll be back in a few minutes with the Spanish version of From Fields to Stage, Del Campo al Escenario. And please stay safe and healthy out there, and hopefully you'll be able to read my book. And if you get a chance, come out to one of my shows and say hello, because I would love to hear from you. Thank you.